For more than 90 years, as we've heard already, the Australian Institute of International Affairs has shaped the national conversation on foreign policy, and it's something I think members should be very, very proud of. It's played a pivotal role in reminding us that foreign policy isn't just some remote or abstract concept. It's instead something that's deeply connected with our prosperity as a nation, our security, and indeed our Australian way of life. As a nation that takes pride in its political indifference, which is frustrating for those who participate in politics sometimes, it's true that we sometimes forget that Australia doesn't exist in isolation from the rest of the world. We are very much part of a global community. We import goods and services from other nations. In fact, we're highly dependent on them. And of course, we export those goods and services to other nations also. We invest globally and we welcome international investment into Australia. We're in security alliances with global allies, and typically the Australian sense of isolation is a very good reason why such reminders about our engagement with the wider community across the globe is sometimes necessary, so we don't fall into a sense of absolute complacency. The founding pioneers of the AIIA understood this very well, and they knew that an informed public is crucial to effective decision-making in Australian democracy. They believed, and of course rightly so, that Australia's engagement with the world should never be left only to governments and of course to diplomats, as wonderful as they all are. They believed, and again rightly so, that such engagement should be part of a much, much wider civic understanding. And just last week, Australians paused for Remembrance Day, and in doing so we honoured the courage and sacrifice of those who fought in wars that shaped the freedoms that we inherit as a nation today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a solemn reminder that peace has never been inevitable. It's always been dependent on vigilance, on leadership, and on the determination to stand up to aggression. The post-war order, anchored in the United Nations Charter's resolve to unite our strength to maintain international peace and security, was born of that determination. For decades, it succeeded in preventing another world war and in expanding human progress on a scale our generational predecessors could hardly have imagined. Yet today, as we gather under the theme, A World Disrupted, Australia and Global Reordering, we must face an uncomfortable truth. That system is under immense strain. The international order forged after 1945 stands challenged in ways we've not seen since the 1930s. Russia has shattered Europe's peace through its brutal war in Ukraine. Iran and its proxies fuel terror and instability right across the Middle East, with far-reaching ramifications. North Korea trades weapons and rhetoric in equal measures, and China has combined remarkable economic success with the most rapid military build-up of our age. And beyond these flashpoints, there are civil wars across Myanmar, Sudan, Ethiopia, which continue to add to the toll of human suffering. Natural disasters, security threats, energy shocks, pandemics, and the weaponisation of the information revolution only help to make us feel even more volatile. What we're really witnessing is the return of power politics without restraint. We're witnessing the emergence of authoritarian states that act in concert to test the resolve of liberal democracies. So the real question is not whether such disruption will continue on. The real question is what those of us in the free world choose to do about it. We saw how 85 years ago appeasement failed. It didn't buy peace. It only delayed the inevitable destruction the aggressors had made their minds up on pursuing. These lessons remain very much salient today. Deterrence to such threats must be credible, they must be strong, and they must be unwavering. History teaches us that weakness invites challenge, while strength sustains peace. That means building up capabilities, investing in alliances, and applying diplomacy from a position of confidence. It means ensuring that aggressors cannot simply outlast the world's attention span. Ukraine must not be left to fight endlessly without hope prevailing. If we allow rampant aggression to continue, the world will conclude that such coercion works and is effective. All that would do is achieve the gradual erosion of our rules-based order, piece by piece. Remember that deterrence, when coupled with diplomacy, is not warmongering. It's the practical recognition that peace is best preserved when those who would disrupt it know they can't succeed. So then we must ask, what exactly is Australia's role in this age of shifting power? Let's remember that when we're not a bystander on the periphery of the globe, we are the leading liberal democracy in the Indo-Pacific region. We have a proud track record of contributing to collective security, from the Korean War to East Timor and beyond. Our voice matters because our values are abundantly clear for all to see. Our geography needs engagement as much as we may not always consciously realise it. When the Coalition restored defence spending to 2% of GDP in 2013, we did more than meet an accounting target. We, in fact, rebuilt credibility, and that credibility is what helped secure the trust that made AUKUS possible. As things stand, AUKUS is more than just a submarine program. It's a generational partnership in advanced technologies. It's set to strengthen our deterrence capabilities, and it will no doubt deepen the integration of our security alliances. It signals to the world that Australia is ready and is willing to invest seriously in its own defence. Yet we can't pause there. We must keep investing in cyber resilience, in space capability, and in emerging technologies that will define the constantly evolving landscape of future warfare. Deterrence must be matched by self-reliance. And let's never forget our most important alliance, and that is our alliance with the United States of America. It is this alliance that has endured a friendship of over 3/4 of a century. It's passed the test of time. Even today, despite some challenging conversations over trade, that alliance remains indispensable. And so too does Australia's engagement through the Quad, ASEAN, with India, Japan and the Pacific Islands, which are vital to a balanced and stable Indo-Pacific region, which is our region. We must ensure that the Global South, particularly our neighbours across the Pacific, does not fall victim to authoritarian influence or unsustainable debt. The reality is that the credibility of our partnerships will depend on listening as well as leading. And to go a step further, let's not forget that military power alone cannot secure peace. It only creates the space for diplomacy to actually work. Australia must champion sovereignty, the rule of law, and peaceful settlement of disputes. Our diplomacy should be confident yet courteous. It must be principled yet pragmatic. In a disrupted world, clarity of purpose is the currency of leadership. The strategic order is shifting and authoritarian powers are pressing their advantage. Australia can neither afford drift, nor can it afford hesitation. We must be clear about what we stand for and be consistent in how we act. Our allies expect it, our adversaries will notice it, and best of all, our citizens deserve it. For more than 70 years, the ANZUS Treaty and our broader partnership with the United States have been the cornerstone of Australia's national security. It's guaranteed access to technology, to intelligence, and deterrence that no middle power could generate on its own. It's underpinned the open trade routes on which our economy depends. And it's created an environment of stability that has allowed our region to prosper. And let's be clear about one thing here. There's no substitute for American engagement in the Indo-Pacific region. We say that realising fully, well, that our alliances are, of course, two-way streets. They rely on each partner demonstrating capability, reliability, and indeed resolve. And that's why the Coalition has been clear that AUKUS must be delivered in full and Australia must shoulder its share of the strategic burden. We cannot outsource responsibility for our nation's defence. When governments send mixed messages on defence funding or delay capability decisions, it not only weakens deterrence, but it also undermines confidence in Canberra's resolve. We should remember that hesitation is noticed, not just in Washington, but of course also in Tokyo, in New Delhi, in Seoul, and right across the Pacific, to name but a few parts of the globe. The Coalition believes that the US alliance is not optional at all. It's fundamental. It's the single greatest guarantor of Australian sovereignty, and so it must be defended with conviction. To allow it to drift would be to betray decades of bipartisan achievement. Geopolitics is now inseparable from economics. Nations are re-evaluating supply chains, investment partners and resource dependencies through a security lens. And Australia must position itself as a trusted supplier of energy, of food, of critical minerals to friendly nations. We must build secure infrastructure, protect our intellectual property and ensure that foreign investment aligns with our national interest. Economic resilience also begins at home, with affordable and reliable energy, competitive industries, strong education and a skilled workforce. We can't project strength abroad if our foundations at home are weak. National power rests on productivity, innovation and social cohesion. And that's why credible foreign policy must be anchored in domestic competence. At its core, the present disruption is not only a contest of power, but also a contest very much of ideas. Democracy, human dignity, and the rule of law are under siege. As I stressed at the start, ladies and gentlemen, authoritarian regimes claim to offer stability without liberty, prosperity without freedom. They portray democracy as chaotic and outdated. Our answer must be lived, not merely spoken. Australia must demonstrate that democracy delivers security, opportunity, and that age-old saying, a fair go. We are the living proof that a free society can also be diverse and cohesive. Our diverse democracy is a strength and it's not in any way a weakness. It shows that loyalty to country and respect for heritage can, in fact, coexist. We must also defend our information space. The emerging new reality is that disinformation campaigns seek to fracture trust within democracies. Countering them requires not censorship, but clarity. It requires transparent institutions, accountable leadership, and a well-informed public. And that's precisely the mission of this organisation, to help Australians understand the world, question assumptions and participate in informed debate. Nowhere is that mission more relevant than in our own region. The Indo-Pacific is home to 2/3 of humanity and the fastest growing economies on the planet. Yet it's also where strategic rivalries intersect most sharply. Our Pacific Island neighbours face existential challenges. Climate impacts, economic vulnerability and external coercion are some prime examples of those challenges. And Australia's support must be long-term, transparent and most importantly empowering. We must focus on practical partnerships, resilient infrastructure, labour mobility and education links that create opportunity rather than dependency. In Southeast Asia, we must deepen our engagement with ASEAN, not just as a security forum, but as a community of shared interests. And in working with Europe, Japan, India, the Republic of Korea, we should continue building overlapping networks that reinforce the rules-based system rather than replacing it. Power in the 21st century will not be defined solely by territory or weapons, but by data, innovation and talent. Australia's future influence depends on remaining a magnet for skilled people and a hub for trusted technology. AUKUS Pillar 2 opens opportunities in quantum, in AI, in cyber and undersea systems. And we must seize those opportunities, ensuring all Australians lead, not follow, in the technologies that shape strategic competition. Our migration system should serve the national interest by attracting the skills we need while maintaining a social cohesion and citizenship integrity. So too does sovereignty begin with control over who enters and contributes to our nation. And you might ask then, what's the game plan moving forward? And it's a legitimate question. The short answer is, as I've already said, to invest in defence, but equally in diplomacy. Deepen our alliances, old and new. Take advantages of the opportunities the new paradigm our planet is facing offers. Support our region in building resilience and sovereignty. Stand up for democratic values at home and, of course, abroad. And engage the Australian people in an understanding about why these choices matter. As we all know, history is not predetermined. The decisions we make now, today, will decide whether disruption leads to disorder or to renewal. Remember that in 1939, King George VI told his people that the primitive doctrine of might must never prevail. And that generation, we must remember, endured and overcame tyranny through courage and through unity. They didn't have a choice. Our task in this century is to prove once more that free nations acting with clarity, with conviction, can shape a better order. Australia is no bystander. We're a committed ally. We're a trusted partner and a determined defender of freedom. And that's our purpose in this new era of disruption, and we must not fail. Thank you for having me here today.
You happy to take a couple of questions? Yeah. The Senator, as Shadow Minister, is more than happy to take, probably we can only fit in one or two questions, but he's more than happy to do that, so fire away. Could you, there's Bryce with the roving mic. We know that you're all important, so can you tell us where you're from, so we'll recognise that importance. I'm not, students and young people and women encouraged to ask questions as well, in particular.
Or it might be the case, oh no, there is a hand up. I was going to say I've covered the field beautifully in that speech, but I had no such luck.
Good morning and thank you. I'm Peter Grulemans. I live in Queensland. I'm an accountant and tax agent with a passion for our country and and a member of IPAN, the Independent Peaceful and Australia Network. Thank you. How can you say that you support King George's wish for the primitive doctrine of might to never prevail when what we're doing in our foreign policy is kowtowing to that primitive doctrine of might that the United States is following? For example...
hang on, these are questions, not statements.
Yes,
so
I'm asking you, how can you agree with King George? You say you agree with King George, yes? How can you do that when there is no threat from countries like China in our region? They want to trade. They don't want war. They don't want annexation. So how can you say that you support King George's position? Where's the threat?
Well, I think, Peter, thank you very much for that, and thank you for coming all the way from Queensland. If we look at threat through the 1939 lens purely, then sure, it's not that. I mean, I don't see the tanks rolling in, of course, but there are threats. One only has to listen to the comments from respected intelligence officials like Mr. Burgess, the head of ASIO, to highlight the threats that we face as a country and as a region and as Western liberal democracies. To suggest that there aren't threats facing our country is, I think, absolute blindness, and we have to prepare for those. AUKUS, defence spending and preparedness is a part of that. And as a country, I don't think we're kowtowing to anyone when it comes to being prepared for conflict in whatever form it arrives. It sure as hell won't be the same sort of conflict we had in 1939. It will be far more insidious if it ever comes to us. It will be without us knowing, and that's why we must be prepared. Intelligence, defence, and importantly, diplomacy, the work of so many of the people in this room, is an important part of preparing for that. So I very much subscribe to King George VI's words of 1939 because I think they fit perfectly today. We don't have to look at things in the same way. We have to be prepared for what is to come. The new threat, it presents itself differently, and having an ability to deal with those threats in whatever form they come is not in any way, I think, inconsistent with being a peace-loving, freedom-adoring leading nation in this region.
Only one other question. Could we have a younger member of the audience who might want to ask a question as well?
Not that Peter was not young.
No, I would hardly say that, would I?
Over here? Over this way, right. Sorry, I had my back to you, right?
All good. Perfect. Thank you, Jonathan, for your keynote speech. My name's Olivia. I'm part of the AIIA study tour. I'm from Melbourne, a recent law graduate and to be master's student in public international law and diplomacy at ANU. You spoke about some really interesting topics, and as a young person who's quite passionate about international law, how do we maintain relevance of the rule of law in multilateralism? And how relevant will it be in the new rewriting of the new global order, especially within our region and as our role, Australia, as a middle power? It'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, I think in all engagements we should attend and present with our belief that the rule of law is central to what we believe to be a successful outcome, be that here domestically, and as I mentioned, we can't just speak it, we must live it, and we do live that adherence to rule of law. I mean, our society would break down if it didn't. And similarly, as I say, when we present in multilateral fora, in bilateral discussions or negotiations, I think that should be central to what we're seeking to achieve. I think empowering nations to pave their own way, not be dependent on us, so equipping our Pacific brothers and sisters with what they need to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and live life as a nation, so we as a region can all proceed in that way that does have at its core observance of the rule of law and underpinning their social construct and how they do business at home and abroad. So it's as simple as this. I mean, every decision we have to make in the international community, be it at the UN or as part of discussions at ASEAN or in bilateral discussions, a fundamental underpinning provision should be, does this support our fundamental belief that the rule of law should be central to any outcome we are seeking to achieve here? Whether it's signing up to an agreement, entering into a trade deal, or providing support to our Pacific neighbours, that needs to be one of the end goals. Does it enhance the outcome when it comes to observing and believing in the rule of law?
Well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, not due to the Senator's wishes, we do have to curtail questions now because we've got more things to do on our agenda, but I would thank you in particular, not just for your very entertaining speech, interesting speech, but also your willingness to take questions from the audience. So, ladies and gentlemen, can you join me in thanking the Shadow Minister and Senator